And so we need to figure out how to fill up the bucket every month. And, whether that's through an annuity, some kind of dividend paying uh, portfolio or just taking your gains. But what if there aren't gains?
And welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, back to Protect and Grow Chicagoland Retirement with Chicagoland's own certified financial planning professional, world famous Tim Stearns, CFP, but Chicagoland's own. Tim, we love having you as the resource here on the program. Author of Solving the Modern Retirement Riddle. So many proactive planners and savers have gotten value from this book that discusses today's retirement challenges and what we will face in the second half of the game, financially speaking. And today we're going to talk about the second half. We're about halfway through the year here, Tim. It's been an interesting year, as they all seem to be. This one may be particularly interesting, but appreciate your time and knowledge and perspective on helping us put together all the pieces, making sense of the financial world, and then formulating our plans for the time ahead. So, Tim, kind of your take. What have you seen in the first half of this year that is noteworthy or of interest to you from a financial perspective?
Well, it brings me back to like when I played sports and that type of thing where, you're ahead in the first half of, let's say, a basketball or football game. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed to win the second half and then ultimately win or lose the game. So what I'm talking to a lot of our clients about, and then people that are calling in from our show, making sure that you finish strong. And what I'm talking about is making sure your house is in order with your investments, not taking undue risk. I think there's been a lot of anxiety in the markets, January through basically now. We've kind of come back to where people were at the beginning of the year. And I don't think most baby boomers signed up for that.
Yeah. So we've sort of already this year seen the cycle a little bit. We had that euphoria at the beginning of the year, I guess a little bit that we were going to see some pro-business environment type of changes, and then all of a sudden we've got the tariff downturn, the tariff tantrums. I think I heard them called, right?
Yeah.
And then things seemed to recover slightly, and now we're a little bit of back to square one, at least from where the major market indices lie. And 6 months isn't a huge amount of time, Tim, but like nobody wants to tread water financially. I
Right.
don't think. And for your sports analogy, I think that there are plenty of very famous examples of where teams have gone into halftime with the lead
Right.
and then come out in the second half and completely blown it. Maybe the most famous of those being the Falcons and the Patriots in the Super Bowl when the Falcons blew that 21 or 28 point lead, whatever it was.
Right.
It was pretty bad as far as I can recall. 21-3 at halftime. So I guess not quite a 28 point lead, a 21 point lead.
Right. You've never been good with math, Pete. That's
No,
okay.
25 point lead because they scored again to start the second half. That's where I'm
Right.
getting confused.
Yeah.
It's
I
25
got you.
point lead. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just teasing. But yeah, I mean, to your point, though, I think this is a teachable moment where you can say, wow, I just had my lunch handed to me. I need to maybe take a step back and look at my portfolio. We have a friend that is heavily invested in a tech stock, and I've told them, you need to be careful. My dad's analogy was always pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And I kind of like that. They've done really well with a certain stock, and I just want to make sure that they understand that in your 60s, that's great that that happened, but you need to start to take a step back and maybe reap your benefits of the profits, and then move on to a slower pace. Where they're not down, 30% in the last 6 months and then come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking with Tim Stearns, CFP, your certified financial planning professional resource. If you've got questions, if you'd like to get together your game plan for the first or the second half, making that progress in your financial life, making sure you're on track with sound strategies personalized to you, customized to your situation and your goals. That is what the Protect and Grow Written Retirement Blueprint is all about. That is the courtesy complimentary service that Tim offers just for being a listener to the program or a viewer of the show. And if you'd like to take advantage, pick up the phone and give TJ Stearns Inc. a call, 800 640 2256, 800 640 2256, 800 640 2256. Tim, transitioning from our working career to retirement, I mean, maybe that's a little bit past halftime in our lives, but it really is
Right.
kind of like the second half of the financial game. However, in an imperfect analogy for the sports comparison that we've been making, in sports, when you come out for the second half, you still have to play generally by the same rules that applied in the first half of the game. In our financial second half in retirement, it seems like there's a whole different set of rules and circumstances. The game has changed completely.
Well, to that point, you're going to need to figure out how you're going to find income. And we've talked about that. So that's one of the reasons I think that people call us is the Protect and Grow Blueprint, to figure out how they're going to orchestrate a retirement that could last 40 years. My mom is going to be 96 in December. She's been retired for quite a while, and thankfully she had pensions. My dad's half of my dad's railroad pension and then her own pension from the school district. Well, not a lot of us have that, and I love this quote from a postal worker that we have as a client. She said, "Tim, you know what I love about my pension?" And I said, "I have no idea." And she said that I can spend all my money and the next month they fill it back up. Well, I will never know that sensation. And I think that begs the question is what kind of a plan do you have out there? Because if your plan is to count on your stock market to do this roller coaster, I think you're going to have a long retirement as far as the anxiety, the angst, and everything that goes with that, knowing how you're going to pay your bills. And that's why we show people with the Protect and Grow Blueprint, a safer way to get it done.
I wonder when I reflect on it, are the next 25 to 30 years going to be as generous in the stock markets as the last 25 to 30 years have been? And, it's not like the last 25 to 30 years have been without our challenges, but the
Right.
stock market over that time has done very well as the baby boomer generation have wrapped up the tail end of their career and been contributing and saving and investing and making those contributions to their 401ks and their IRAs. But over the next 25 to 30 years, as the game changes, we're in the second half, and those same baby boomers are now net sellers of assets. They're
Right.
unwinding those investments. What kind of pressures does that put on the market? But maybe more importantly, Tim, I'm glad to hear that at 96, your mom has been retired for quite a while. I'd hate to have to, hear that she's still at work trying to make it just a little longer there at 96.
Right. Well, she has a very good financial planner, myself. So, no, and that's, I think, what people really want is they want their parents, the baby boomers want their parents' retirement. And they're not going to get it because most of them don't have pensions. I mean,
Not the dollars themselves, the style of
the
the
style,
confidence of their.
exactly.
Yeah, I know.
The
I've
sensation.
heard I've heard about these professional waiters waiting around for the great wealth transfer to happen. That's not what you're saying here. We're not
No,
waiting
no.
on our parents' wealth to transition before we can have the retirement. You're talking about the confidence that was built in that older style of retirement that we just don't have these days.
Right. It's a different era now. And so we need to figure out how to fill up the bucket every month. And, whether that's through an annuity, some kind of dividend paying uh, portfolio or just taking your gains. But what if there aren't gains? And there's times where the market's down so much. One of the things that I marvel at is that people don't even know what sequence of returns risk is.
Mhm.
And that's basically taking money from your portfolio in a down market is not a good thing. That's how simple I'll break it down. So that happens, you're going to be pulling out more than you really want to. That's why I beg the question, why would you not want to have an income plan so that when the market does take a hit, you're fine. You're paying all your bills, but you're waiting for the market to come back if you're going to do something, like the trip you never got to take or buying that new car and that type of thing. So I mean, the Protect and Grow Blueprint, I think people are very happy with it because it's dynamic, because life happens. and things are going to change, and we've done really well with planning out someone's 30 to 40 year retirement using that.
Well, retirement is a significant lifestyle shift, and a lot of financial changes and considerations and nuances come along with that. We need to be careful to evaluate those, consider those changes carefully and what they mean, how they will reflect in our approach to our financial situation. We've touched on, Tim, just a couple of those surface levels so far in this program, but talking about that second half, we want to do it right. We only get one shot at that ideal retirement. You've talked about that a number of times.
Yeah.
We want to retire well. We want to protect our comfort and quality of life and financial confidence. So, what are the top things that we need to really look at and consider? What are the fundamental adjustments that we need to make in order to have success in that second half of the game? You mentioned it. I think it bears repeating. Let's talk about income sources and cash flow management. I think probably is right there near the top of the list.
Well, you're basically going from, earned income to passive income. Passive income would be things like Social Security, if you're lucky enough to have a pension, that as well. But also, withdrawing money from your IRAs, your 401ks, you're not building wealth, you're actually taking it out. And, that has to have a plan to it. Where are you going to start at? Are you going to take out money from your savings first, your IRAs, your 401ks, or even your Roths? But basically, you're going to be passively taking money out. But the key challenge here is ensuring that it's reliable, inflation adjusted, and sustainable. But and that's another example of where sequence of returns risk really comes into play.
Well, Tim, so I've got this pot of money here. Don't I just take out what I need? Can't I just kind of cover my expenses as they come?
You could do that, but then what happens is Uncle Sam has a plan for your money too. So you need to focus on the fact that you're not going to receive the full dollar. You're gonna if you're taking it out of IRAs and such. But you could have capital gains as well if it's like a non-qualified account. So those are the things we want to make sure, we have a CPA on staff that we make everyone understand when we're doing a protect and grow blueprint, we're making sure that it's adjusted for gross income versus, having the full dollar coming to you. So there's key strategies here. And, with the passing of the great, beautiful bill, that's great time to look into Roths and that type of thing when you are retiring.
Yeah, the rules around us can and often do change, as well
Absolutely.
as our own life situations can change and evolve over time. And the market can change pretty rapidly, Tim. The other problem with just kind of withdrawing what we need, right? You mentioned it, sequence of returns risk. What if the market is
Right.
is down a few years or down more often than it is up for a period of years, right? And then when we've got this pot of money in day one or year one of retirement and we take money out, how do we know that we can continue taking money out in year 25 and 30 of retirement? We've got to consider the how long we need to generate that income for as well.
Right. And then, there's obviously challenges that come in there, such as like healthcare and long-term care insurance. If you do or don't have that, they figure a couple over the age of 65 will be spending over $350,000 just on Medicare alone. And that doesn't obviously entail anything with long-term care, and the cost of that. And that's a hard conversation we're having with a lot of our clients is to sit there and go, what are we going to do here? Because if that happens, that could be
Mm.
catastrophic.
Healthcare is
Um,
not free in retirement.
exactly. And
Long-term care isn't even routine health care. That is a
right,
level above and beyond extenuating circumstances.
right, right. So, I mean, we look at that as being a real challenge that at least we have to acknowledge that it could be out there, the long-term care component, or we're going to solve for it and get a solution in there that will help.
Well, again, we are talking with Tim Stearns, and he is the founder at TJ Stearns Inc. He is a certified financial planning professional. Ladies and gentlemen, Chicagoland proactive planners, savers, and investors, many have turned to Tim Stearns, CFP, and TJ Stearns Inc. for guidance and to get their own protect and grow written retirement blueprint. But so many more need that kind of document, that plan in hand and in place to provide for lasting financial financial confidence, for the strategies to move proactively into the second half of the game. And if you would like to get your Protect and Grow written retirement blueprint, all you need to do is start that conversation by picking up the phone, giving a call to TJ Stearns Inc. 800-640-2256. That is 800-640-2256. 800-640-2256. You can also visit online tjstearns.com, tjstearns.com. Lots of great information available for you there. Tim is author of Solving the Modern Retirement Riddle. Tim, you often make a few copies of that book available for listeners and viewers of the show.
Right. So right now, I'd like to put an offer out there that the first 10 callers with over $1 million worth of assets will get the book Solving the Modern Retirement Riddle into their hands. I think it's very important to understand what you're going into because you've never been there. And I kind of dice it up and make sure that it's easily digestible to understand what exactly is going on when you are in retirement. It's a whole different ball of wax than what you're used to now. And yes, you might have helped your parents get through it and that type of thing, but it's a different beast when you're in the middle of it. And I would tell anyone out there the book will help them get through it. My siblings are all baby boomers. They've read the book, and if they can think it's a good book, I think they don't usually give a lot of accolades to the youngest, right? So that's one of the things that I think is out there for people. I want to give some knowledge back because you're going to need it.
Tim Stearns had it tough until he started giving the kind of advice that those older siblings needed.
They
Well, ladies and
listen now.
gentlemen, if you would like that same kind of guidance and advice, then get your copy of Solving the Modern Retirement Riddle. It's a great start, but of course, Tim does offer to help you personally construct your written retirement, the Protect and Grow blueprint. And if you'd like to get that in your hands, the book, the Protect and Grow blueprint for retirement, pick up the phone, start that conversation and process by calling 800-640-2256, 800-640-2256. Because Tim, as you said, even if you don't have a plan, the IRS ultimately has a plan for you. And again, the rules sort of change in the second half of the game. They give you all of these opportunities in the first half of the game to save, to invest, to benefit from the tax code. And then it seems like the piper comes calling in the second half, and the rules change, and then they start getting a little bit more on the collection agency side.
Well, you think about this in your lifetime, it's always been about saving. Right? So you're going to go through, 60 years of your life where you're a saver and then suddenly you're allowed to spend. And you could spend carelessly and run out of money. And, no one ever taught me, including my mom, who is an excellent investor, how to decumulate correctly. The accumulation, I dare say, is the easy part. So you got to look at the decumulation is really like, what is the safe amount that I can spend? In retirement and not run out of money and not, have to worry about, wow, what if one of us needs long-term care?
Mm.
What if my Medicare plan is the wrong one? I signed up, but I'm stuck with it for a year. These are things that we go through with people yearly, day in and day out. And getting through it, and make sure that you learn from someone who's helping people get through a successful retirement.
A year or longer if those health issues come up, right, Tim? We got one chance of getting into Medicare without the medical background and underwriting
Right.
information working against us. But if things come up, sometimes we got into a plan thinking it's going to be the one, and prices change. There's sort of a schedule for that, but if it ends up not being the best plan and health issues have come up, it might prevent us from moving to a different plan, even during that open enrollment period. So healthcare, long-term care considerations, things that we haven't had to deal with before, suddenly we have to deal with in retirement. And another one, Tim, is spending behavior and budgeting. A lot of people have earned an income where they have not had to pay a whole lot of attention to their spending behavior and their budgeting. And even the different phases that we will go through in retirement as compared to our working years mean a lot for the kind of planning that we'll need to do.
Well, yeah, to your point, we always say there's three levels. You have the go-go years where you're, discretionary spending, travel, hobbies, things that you didn't get to do because you were working. Then you go into the slow go years, which is, lower activity and kind of some reduced expenses just because, you're older. And then unfortunately, the no-go years is where we see a tick up in spending, and basically it's primarily healthcare spending. And whether that looks like long-term care or worse yet, that you're in the hospital in and out and you have to pay some of those bills. Those are the things that are hard to, budget for, those big ticket items. But you want to make sure that your income even down that level, 25 years down the road, let's say, has stayed up with inflation and those unplanned expenses.
Tim, do you ever talk to anybody who's maybe in like their late 60s, early 70s, talking about this is the last car
Oh yeah.
I ever plan to buy?
Yep.
Like, do we
Yep.
do we have to have a more reasonable conversation about just that kind of big ticket item that we're probably going to have at least one, maybe two or more in our lifetime?
Yeah, my dad had three last cars. So he really did. And we always made a joke of that. But yeah, I mean, to your point, life is dynamic. It's not static. What you think is going to happen in 25 years could look very differently than what it is. So when you're doing these plans, you have to make sure that they too are dynamic, staying up with inflation so that we can, battle the American dollar and make sure that it's staying whole.
And then we have to look at our investment strategy as well, right? We already talked about the need for income kind of reverses completely. We were out earning it, and now our investments and our dollars that we have saved, our portfolio has to earn it and generate it for us. But the strategy underlying that portfolio and our very internal tolerance for taking on the risk that has been so required along the way may also change pretty dramatically, right, Tim?
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, the amount of risk that you're taking right now, I think you'd be surprised. So one of the things I want to offer out there is, we use a software called Riskalyze. So if anyone wants to give us a call, we can send them a report that will tell them exactly what, where they come in at as what they want as a level of risk. And then I'll go a step further and say that we can look at their portfolio and see what risk is in there. Because I know most people that come in here after we do that exercise are very surprised at how much risk they actually have. If the last 6 months didn't tell you that, our report will as well. So I'd like to offer that as well.
Yeah, well, if you would like to take advantage of that, get that analysis of the risk inside of your portfolio, very important for you to know, and then compare with what level of risk you're comfortable actually taking. A lot of people find that they are off balance, misaligned with that risk tolerance and then the actual risk exposure. If you'd like to make sure that you're double checking and understanding the level of risk you are exposed to, give a call. 800-640-2256, 800-640-2256. It is part of the Protect and Grow written retirement blueprint as well, but that is a subsection there of it, just that risk analysis portion, but looking at income, investments, taxes, healthcare, legacy, all part of the picture. And speaking of legacy, Tim, another thing that maybe doesn't change completely, but certainly becomes more important if we have reached the second half of the game is estate and legacy planning.
You couldn't say that better. I mean, it really is important. I have so many people who are highly educated coming in here from our show who are saying stuff like, yeah, I need to do that. Or do I really need to have a trust? Or do I really, and again, we have an estate attorney on staff, and with that comes, great bang for your buck, if you will, that we can kind of cover all the bases for people to make sure that when we're doing their protect and grow blueprint, we're also looking at where are their blind spots. Because if you want to make sure that you lose a lot of money, let your estate go into probate.
Mhm.
There's so many different ways that people, screw up their estate, and there's nothing they can do after the fact. We have one client who didn't do anything, and now the two sons are flying out to
Mhm.
Las Vegas to figure out how to go through the Las Vegas probate courts. I mean, they're from the Chicagoland. That's not a thing that they wanted to do. They have to take time off work. So, I mean, and they're going to use some of the estate expenses to get them out there. So
I'm
they're
sorry to
losing
hear
money that
that.
way. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say flying out to Vegas to blow their inheritance overnight, but and then having to figure out the estate, a much less enjoyable experience, and probably more long-term commitment.
It's been over a year and a half. And if there is any money left over, they might go out there and blow their money on Las Vegas slots or something. But right now, they can't even get their hands on it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Tim, so many have overlooked the necessity of doing that estate planning. And where I thought you might be going with that was the coordination between the financial and the legal and the tax aspects of planning become paramount. I mean, this is success or failure ultimately of your plan, right, Tim?
Right. So you want to make sure that your will says what the trust says. I've seen different beneficiaries, and we want to make sure that people have it done right. The other one I always think of, Pete, is there was a guy who called in our show about 10 years ago. And when I was looking through his paperwork, I realized that his first wife was still the beneficiary.
Mhm.
So that is another reason to make sure that you don't have someone that you don't want as a beneficiary able to still tap into the money.
Yeah. Finally, Tim, lifestyle, psychological adjustments, these are part of retirement as well. And I think that psychological side of it, the lifestyle that we have built for ourselves, that built us to where we are now, completely changes when we leave work behind. And, I think that there's something to be said for not being prepared for the lack of drive and motivation and activity.
Right. And that's why I always, I'm hoping a lot of our retirees have some sort of a hobby to keep them busy and keep them fresh. One of the things I think that my mom has done so well is she stays active, whether it's doing crosswords or doing, going to Mahjong and all these different games. She's busier than I am.
Yeah.
But those things, the brain's your biggest muscle, right? And so you have to keep it exercise. So those are the things that, we see. And, our clients, we try to do like a golf outing for them, get them out and doing something. It's so important.
I hear all the people talking through the radio right now at me, Tim, saying I could do nothing for forever, and I think a lot of us are surprised by how quickly we get less than motivated and bored with lack of activity, and so you really do need to think mentally, emotionally, lifestyle, psychologically, like what does retirement mean to you, and then align the finances for the second half of the game to support all of those things that are so important to you. A lot to consider for the second half, even with a sizable lead, we'll call it. So
Right.
as always, Tim, you make one big offer, and that is to put together the Protect and Grow written retirement blueprint, the pillars of financial security that you put in place, that you examine and make sure to structure for people to have that foundation of stability and confidence, and then to build and grow upon that. That's the Protect and Grow mentality, ladies and gentlemen. And the blueprint is what gives you that vision and that picture. So if you'd like that, Protect and Grow blueprint, specifically custom designed for your situation, personalized for you, plus the book, Solving the Modern Retirement Riddle. Just be a caller right now. One of the first 10 callers with over 1 million will get the copy of the book. But everybody that would like a plan, you have access. You can get one. The Protect and Grow written retirement blueprint is an offer, a courtesy service that Tim Stearns and the team from TJ Stearns Inc. offer to put together for listeners and viewers of the show. 800-640-2256, the number to call. 800-640-2256. Tim, as always, such a pleasure speaking with you, sharing some time today.
Peter, thanks for having me.
Tune into Chicagoland certified financial planner Tim Stearns' full radio program and visit tjstearns.com for many valuable resources, including other great episodes of Chicagoland Retirement. Be sure to subscribe.
Investment advisory services offered through Cornerstone Securities, LLC. The information presented on this program is provided for informational purposes only without warranty of accuracy, completeness, or suitability for a particular purpose. This program is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. This information is general in nature, not specific enough to be construed as advice. You should not make any decision based on the information presented on this program without independent consultation with an appropriately licensed professional or competent advisor. Investment in securities or the market involves a potential risk for loss of principal. Trading, therefore, may not be suitable for all listeners. listeners. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Withdrawals or growth from annuities may be taxable as ordinary income in the year it is taken. Individuals should review contracts for specific details of the product's features and costs.